Good evening, my friends. I am here to start probably a two-part series on resistance by popular demand. And forgive my COVID voice. I went down the COVID rabbit hole last weekend and I'm back to the land of the living, but my voice is not quite there yet. Okay, so let's talk about resistance. This is a really, really common theme. The number one thing I want to say is there are so many reasons for resistance that can be very personal. I'm going to lay out, this is the most common just chemical form of resistance from the limbic system. And then the next time I'll break down more some of the specific reasons, like specific other things that are not just chemical resistance. And we'll break that down next time. So this is the first time. So this is what you've probably heard me say a bajillion times, right? When we are actually succeeding in rewiring our limbic systems and getting more into relaxation chemistry, we're changing the entire chemical cocktail in the brain and body. And your limbic system is designed to keep things at status quo. Big, dramatic, drastic changes usually signal a possible threat in the environment. Remember that for your limbic system, inside of you is an environment. That's the environment. That's one environment in addition to your exterior environment and your relational environments. So big changes in chemistry, the limbic system will be like, that's too much. Let's bring it back. So let's intensify symptoms. Let's create new fears. Let's just ramp up, more scary thoughts and old patterns and, old symptoms and new symptoms and just not responding to tools, not your brain sometimes just won't generate dose. It will only generate can no matter how much effort you put in to trying to cultivate relaxation chemistry. So that's what we're talking about here, is that kind of resistance. And there's a couple of this is actually a really important part of recovery. I realized as I was breaking everything down for this video, this is a really important milestone to pass. One of the biggest things, which you've also heard me say 1,000 times, so forgive me for saying it again, is it's a really good opportunity to focus on your process, not your outcomes. And before I lose you on that, let me give you a quick analogy. If you have a machine, right, you have like a factory assembly, and you want it to give you perfect Hershey's Kisses, like the perfect shape with the little, foil and the little thing on top, and a little piece of plastic, and you keep getting like Easter bunnies or ovals or just random like smashed rock shaped versions of chocolate that are not wrapped in foil and still melted. You're like, okay, something's wrong with the machine. We're not getting the right outcome. This is not what we're looking for. We do not want more symptoms and more activation and more scary thoughts. We're not looking for that. And then you go back, what we do then is we go back to the machine. Instead of sitting there and being like, oh my God, it's not working, and just panicking and watching it not work and panicking, we go back and we look at the machine. And in this situation, your process is the machine. That's the factory lineup. So, go back to the basics. Whatever program you've got, go back to those basics. Do you know how to successfully redirect, a trauma pattern? Do you know what they are? Are you catching as many of them as you can? Are you implementing everything as consistently and accurately according to the science as you can? That's big. And I know that sounds really basic, but when I coach people, that's one of the most common reasons that people's resistance takes over is they don't actually know what they're doing, which is really, really, really common. It's very hard to know what you're doing when your brain is the thing that's impaired. So go back to the basics. That's why we go back and repeat and get help, get a coaching call, ask somebody that you can trust, look up more information, get a workshop from me if coaching is outside your budget. But get more information and seek to understand the information you already have. That's a big thing. But the key is to focus on your process, not on the outcomes. A couple of other things. The real meat of this, the real meat of what this is about, though, is it's an opportunity to release the fear of your limbic system. That's what this is really about. And to really start to understand this for what it truly is. This was what I did when I got to this point where it was like every day I woke up and it was facing the dragon of my limbic system. Every morning, every incremental training, every day, it was like, the scene in Moana with the lava monster, or like the Balrog in Lord of the Rings. It was like every day, it was just this battle with this fiery beast. And I was like, when is this ever going to end? And I hit this point where I was like, okay, your limbic system is about the size of a walnut. And your amygdala is about the size of an almond. Like, we're talking about parts of the brain that are like this big. All right, it's just a part of your brain. That's what's creating all of this, right? And of course, understanding and believing that it's just part of your brain is really important. That's the number one big thing, is just coming back to, it's just my limbic system, and my goal is to rewire it, not just make it stop what it's doing. You can't force it to stop. How you respond to it is what determines what happens. It's a relationship. So, and you are a human being, you are a human person, you are not your brain, you are not your body. You can make art out of pancakes and fall in love and create other human beings. You're not your brain. You're something else. Now you think about you, the human, this ephemeral human thing you are, your infinite human spirit, and this walnut-sized part of your brain. Objectively, which one do you think has more power? Probably you. Probably. Just maybe you. Think you probably have more power. So that's the opportunity here, is to start to identify with who you really are and what you really are, and realize that your limbic system is here to express you. It's for expressing your emotions, your passion, your joy, your anger, your rage, your everything, your interests. That's what it's for. It's not more powerful than you, and you don't need to be afraid of it. And that's the lesson here, is learning how to stand. Any situation you've ever seen in a movie or been in real life, the person in any kind of confrontation who has more power is really calm. And they're not likely to attack or get frazzled if the other person is acting aggressively, because they know they have more power. And they know that they can put this out quickly. And I know that's a big reach, and that's the point. That reach has to be made. We have to grasp at our power. We have to take it. We have to say, yes, I have more power. I am willing to step into that belief and act like it, and continue to calmly redirect as best, it's not easy. I know, just the tiniest little bit. You reach for that little bit of calm. You reach for that understanding. This is just my brain. This is all false. And you keep redirecting. And one thing that can help, look for this, is a lot of times when you have resistance, the limbic activity gets so blown out of proportion. It's so ridiculous. Sometimes it's easier to stop being afraid of it, because it's so blown out of proportion. You're like, okay, yeah, this is not real. That's ridiculous. Like, this is so absolutely out of control. Like, I don't believe this. This is absurd. It gets so unbelievable that sometimes it's easier to stop believing it and just call the bluff and be like, yeah, this is that. I don't have anything to be afraid of. Whatever. You're making stuff up out of ears you don't even have. So that can be helpful. So be consistent. It's all about how you respond. And that's the biggest thing. If you know you're not out of your training zone, if you know this is just resistance, don't back down. Do not back down. Continue to do your practice. Continue to do whatever incremental training you're doing. Continue to keep your load the same. Continue to hold on to everything that you believe, the science of what you're choosing to believe, and hold that. The limbic system needs to see that you aren't going to back down just because it's being loud. No matter how loud it gets. It's just a baby crying. It's just a dog barking. It's not, if you hold your ground, it won't take over. Now, if you get scared and you back down and you give into it, then it will take over because you allowed it to. And that's something to realize. When there's resistance, your brain is looking for a chance to hijack. It's more comfortable being in shutdown and in fight or flight than it is, at this point, being calm, because we're making that shift. We're not there yet. So it's going to look for that. Don't give it an opportunity. Don't crack the door open. Shut that door and lock it. Hold your ground. These are like, for the basic resistance, this is the stuff that's absolutely key. You can also introduce novelty. If you've never done buddy rounds, try adding buddy rounds. If you change your clothes, change everything you possibly can, the order you do things in, the visualization topics, your mood elevators, the art on your walls, like, do things at different times a day if you can. Just switch up the time that you would normally do something. If you normally eat the same thing every day, but if you eat like a certain thing, just, eat dinner for breakfast and blah, 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 if you can. Keep changing things up and trying to catch your limbic system off guard, because when it's in resistance, it's in that loop. And if you do a pattern interrupt, the brain will be like, what? What happened? What? And then you'll get a moment of clarity where you can jump in and take charge again. So that's basic resistance. Pretty in-depth dive for what I usually do here. But that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing, guys. It's all about you stepping into your power and seeing all of this for what it is. An illusion. Love you guys.